Hello, I'm Bruce Zimmerman, and this is the Open Line Garden Show podcast for this week. Woody plants for 2018. These are plants that are recommended by the industry for your garden for the coming year. Now, these are usually plants that are new. Some are sometimes older plants that have stood the test of time. Usually in trial gardens, etc. Right now, we'll probably look at some of the woody or shrubby or tree types. These are usually the ones that are the backbone of any garden. So as you plan, you want to be able to spot these in certain areas, knowing that you're going to surround them with other plant material, whether it be other shrubs, perennials, or just annuals. There could also be some other hard materials put into the garden just as decorations as well. All of this can be planned throughout the winter, either by walking your garden, measuring it up, or you can even, if you're really good, do it by just looking out the window at the garden in the snow whenever that does happen. Please remember we are at least 1 month behind in when our first killing frost should be here in Niagara. And that means that we're having a very long fall. Has been fairly wet, so it is a good one before the plant material to winterize. In other words, the plants are getting slowly ready for winter. Now, if winter comes fast, there could be a problem. The first one we're taking a look at is going to be a magnolia. Now, you know that I really like magnolias. This one is called Cameo. It has the reddish-purple exterior on the flowers. It has more of a clear, clean white on the inside. So there is a little bit of a red or purple blush in that clear white interior. So it makes for quite an interesting magnolia. This one is pyramidal but it is a pyramidal round habit. This is good in the fact that it's a little more towards the upright. Now this means that you can keep it a little bit controlled on the outside edges as it grows, and this will give you a plant that takes up less space across in the garden, but it's still a fairly large variety. The height of this magnolia eventually is 4 meters, but it's got a spread of 3 meters, and that may be the one that you want to consider. Height, yes, but the fact that it is actually going to be about 12 to 15 feet across is the first considerations for your spotting in the garden. It is hardy to zone 5, and therefore it should be good in most areas. Because with magnolias, you want to watch out for a late frost, which will, of course, adversely affect the flowering. So pushing this one beyond that could be an issue. Now, the next one is a Malus or crabapple. Now, this one is an ornamental crabapple. It has pink flowers with bronzy green leaves that emerge in the maroon maroon colored leaves. Okay, so the result is that you've got one of the group that gives you the most color. Then, so they start out the leaves in more of a maroon and then go to this bronzy green, which is always good, with the pink flowers as their background. This makes it for an interesting tree. Now this is a tree. It's going to be about 6 to 8 meters in height and 4 to 5 meters in width. So it's certainly not one of the smaller ones. But its hardiness is zone 2, which means that it can be grown much farther, up farther north, with great success. The other thing that this one is interesting about is it has the little fruit on it as well. Now, this is a tiny fruit that will appear in late summer like it does on most of the crab apples later on in the summer, in other words. They contain no seed, which really is a good thing. It means that the fruit will dry up very discreetly and drop. That means that there's a lot less cleanup to this plant than most of the crab apples, which gives you all this cleanup you've got to do and raking up, and of course seedlings. So this one does have all those extra benefits, and it is actually, even though it's a larger of the crab apples, you'll find that it is actually going to be a good one in the fact that it's got the hardiness, it's got the lack of mess with the fruit, and it still gives you all the colors. So Malus Courageous is going to be an excellent addition to most large yards. The other one that you're going to see next year is Syringa, which is a lilac. This one is called Virtual Violet. It is an interesting one in the fact that it has shiny violet new leaves. The stems on the new growth, in other words, the younger parts of the branches, are also a deep purple. The buds on the plant are raspberry purple, and they open to a fragrant violet flower. So the leaf petioles remain violet well into the summer, and it's very dense and upright in its habit, which makes it good for large hedges. This one could be interesting in that regard. So in other words, you've got a plant that is about the color, and it's going to be just not the flowers. The leaf petioles are remaining the violet throughout the summer. The new growth, the stems, are going to give you a little bit more of the purple. The new leaves come out in the violet, and the buds on the flowers are raspberry purple, and they open up to fragrant violet flowers. That gives you a lot of color throughout the growing season, and the fact that it is very upright in its habit and dense, making it a good hedge. This means even as an individual specimen, it could actually be very interesting in a garden as a background plant, or one of what they would call the bones of your border or garden. Now the next one is Daryliva. Now Daryliva is a plant that we don't grow very often here, and this common name is bush honeysuckle. This Daryliva is called Firefly Night Glow. So that's interesting right there. It's intensely yellow flowers from spring through summer, and it glows bright against the dark red foliage. So you've got yellow against red. Always interesting, and very long blooming time. The red foliage becomes more aggressive and more intense as the season progresses, which is the reverse to many plant material, where it gets sort of paler, greener as it gets older leaves. It grows to a height of 1 meter and a spread of 1 meter. That means it's fairly manageable in any garden. Now, this plant does need the sunlight. It is hardy to zone 4, so most of the listeners here on the show will be able to grow this one. But they won't recognize it, and they won't sort of plant it because they won't really know it, because there's so many plants to pick from, and this is one they don't know. So if you're really smart, you will see that it is actually a good plant material to put into a garden. And the very fact that it is going to be growing by J.C. Backer, so that means it is locally growing most likely, but also by Van Bell Nurseries out in British Columbia. So you've got both places growing it, what I will call more locally. Excellent plant material that you need to go and take a look at for your garden. Now, with Julias, I've always had sort of a mixed working with these ones. There is one new one coming out called Date Night Strobe. It has bright pink flowers against the green and bronze, and then orange and crimson red foliage. So the foliage changes, but it has the bright pink flowers. It grows 3 feet tall and wide, so it's manageable in a garden. Its hardiness is zone 4, and it is grown locally by J.C. Backer. So it is going to be available in this area in the gardens centers around here. With Julia Date Night Strobe, bright pink flowers, green and bronze, then orange, then crimson red foliage, and pretty cool. 3 feet by 3 feet, hardy to zone 4, so you have no problems with it in Toronto to grow that as well. Now, in the hydrangeas, there are a couple of newer ones. This one is Invincible Wee White. This is a invincible type hydrangea. It is a dwarf white mophead that ages to shades of green and pink, grows to a height of about 75 centimeters with a spread of 75 centimeters. Hardiness is zone 3, which is good, and it was introduced by Proven Winters, and Sheridan Nurseries is going to be growing it. So it's going to be grown more locally, and you're going to find that it has been growing fairly cool and cold, which is always a good thing when you're planting into our gardens. So that's Invincible Wee White. Now there is also another Invincible called Mini Mauvette. I think you're going to really like this one. It's introduced by Proven Winners, grown by Sheridan Nurseries and Kennedale Nurseries. It has that sort of unique purple blooms on sturdy stems that bloom from summer through frost, which is good. Grows to a height of 1 meter and a spread of 1 meter and hardy to zone 3. This one really does take its name seriously with the Mauvette. So it is more of a mauve as opposed to purple. Okay, so be aware. There is also going to be a Exocorda, which is the pearl bush. I'm getting more and more enthused about these white blooming bushes. This one's very compact, like many of them, and they grow 4 feet, 3 to 4 feet tall and wide, hardy to zone 4, and they just get so many flowers for so long, and it is very, very pretty plant. So late spring, white flowers, very reliable on a compact bush. Pearl bush, Exocarta Magical Snowdrops. I'm Bruce Zimmerman. This is the Open Line Garden Show podcast for this week.